Hello everyone, Clayton here at etrailer.com. Here at etrailer.com, we install, test, and review a lot of different products to help you as a customer make a more educated decision before your purchase. Today I have a 2018 Chevy Silverado 1500. We're going to be taking a look at, and I'll show you how to install, the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system with Coachlink. You might be asking yourself, what's the difference between a regular Air Force One and the one with Coachlink? Well, simply the Coachlink is something that plugs in inside of our coach and tells us when the brakes are being applied in our truck. We are not able to tell whenever we're flat towing, so having that peace of mind is really nice. Our supplemental braking system is going to be one of our key components in our flat towing setup for our Silverado. We're going to have our tow bar, our base plate, our safety cables, our supplemental braking system, our diode wiring, and our battery disconnect. Our supplemental braking system is going to be proportional. What that means is however hard we're pushing the brakes in our RV, that same braking pressure is going to be applied into our towed vehicle. The Air Force One is a lot different from other braking systems simply because of the fact it uses air. What that means is it's going to take air from our RV's braking system, put it into a separate tank, and then use that air to push the brake in our truck. For our braking system, the only thing we're going to see on the front of the truck is our breakaway switch and our airline hookup. This kit is also going to include everything. We need to get it installed properly. To disconnect our braking system, all we need to do is take this carabiner clip off and then pull back on this air fitting and release it like so. To reconnect our braking, all we have to do, push that fitting on. We can grab our clip for the breakaway switch and put it on there just like that. And in terms of installation, getting our braking system installed really isn't that bad. There are quite a few components, but if you just take your time, you could definitely do it at home. Speaking of installation, I'll show you how to get it installed on your Silverado now. To start our installation, we want to find a good mounting location for our operating unit. In our case, I mounted it right here. We have a secondary battery tray, so this is going to be perfect. It's really secure. I just used a few self-tappers around the outside. We're going to have plenty of room to run our wires and a lot of room to conceal everything. Our next step is going to be to find a hole in the firewall. In our case, we used our main grommet right here. There's a little nub on the end you can just cut off with a utility knife and then poke a screwdriver through the other side and then push an airline tube through. Now the catch is on the other side there is going to be a fuse panel kind of blocking it. So you're going to have to reach behind that fuse panel and grab that pull wire. We now want to find a good mounting location for our breakaway switch. There's some good places that we can mount our actual bracket on the back of our fascia here, where I'm probably just going to have to drill a hole here, and for our wiring it'll be on the other side. Instead of drilling into our chrome here, I'm actually just going to cut out a little square with my razor knife, and all we'll see on the front is just this little square, and we'll have to fab up a little bracket behind our fascia. This is where our breakaway switch came through our fascia. I'm just going to run a self-tapper through this little bracket in our bumper. Our orange wire is going to run to our 12-volt power, and our black wire is going to connect to our operating unit. I'll go ahead and run our wires and then show you how I did it. I did have to extend our orange wire. I just went ahead and used black. You want to make sure to keep the two black wires separate. This will just give us enough length to run it up to our battery. I pulled our black wire up along the outside of our fan shroud and brought it behind our washer fluid tank and just pulled it out right here. We can now make our connection to one of the wires on our operating unit. I'm just going to zip tie our wire to one of our factory wires down here. Again, you want to make sure that your wire isn't going to get tangled up in your fan shroud. I'm going to grab our wire from our operating unit and add one of our supplied blue butt connectors. We're just going to slide that over our wire and then crimp it down. We'll now grab the wire that we pulled up, kind of measure it out. I'm going to cut it right down here. We are going to have some extra that we can hide. We'll cut our wire off. Then we can grab our wire strippers and strip it back. Then we'll add our blue butt connector to this side. With that crimped down, we just want to add some electrical tape. We do have quite a bit of extra wire. I'm just going to kind of group this together and zip tie it to our factory harness over here. Our other wire is going to go to ground. We're just going to ground that on our battery tray. You do want to be careful not to hit our washer fluid tank or our module over here. This is that orange wire that we extended. I just pulled that up on the other side of our fan shroud, just like I did on the driver's side. Now I'm going to run this behind our air box, up along the side here, and make our other connections. We need to add that orange wire from our breakaway switch to the brown wire and connect that to our 12-volt power. So I twisted them together and added a butt connector. Then our brown wire is going to run to the reed switch inside of our car. I'll go ahead and heat shrink this butt connector now. Just going to add some electrical tape to this to ensure a good connection for a long time. We are adding a battery disconnect to this truck, so I'm just going to leave everything kind of loose for now, and then I'll come back and clean it up later. I'm going to run this brown wire along this factory wiring and just zip tie it in a few spots, and then we'll drop it into our firewall. I taped our two wires to our airline tube. Go ahead and pull those through the firewall. Our brown wire is going to be connecting to the reed switch on our brake actuator, and our gray wire is going to be for our battery disconnect. These are the only two wires we're going to have to run through the firewall. So now we can pull our airline tube completely through. Now we can grab our actuator and get that mounted. If your truck does have adjustable pedals, you want those pushed all the way down to the floor as far as possible before connecting your brake actuator. We want to hold our brake actuator up on our brake pedal arm. We're going to try to get our anchor as straight as possible on the back of our firewall. So it looks like we're going to be mounting it right around here. We're going to want to cut out this noise canceling material to mount our anchor on that firewall. I'm just going to use a utility knife. I went ahead and got our actuator set. I had to move it to the other side of the brake pedal. It just fit a little bit better, but you do want to make sure it clears the gas pedal, and in this case it does. I went ahead and cut out that sound dampening material behind there, and now I'll mount our anchor. Now what you want is this cord here to be straight left and right, and you want it to tilt down just a little bit. That way when the brake pedal is compressed and our actuator is pulled out, that wire is totally straight. You can now push your airline tube through the grommet, and you want to cut it off with some airline tube cutters down here by our operating unit. You do want to make sure to leave a little bit of extra room for that line to flex when air is going through it. I'm going to cut ours right about there. You do want to make sure to get a good clean cut. We'll just push this in to air out since the air is going out to the actuator. Give it a little tug, make sure it's not going anywhere. In this case, it's good. With our airline tube ran inside, we need to move it to where it's not going to hit anything whenever we're just driving. Right there, it's pretty good. It has enough play to where it can move around. We can grab our airline cutters and just cut it right there. And we'll deburr it a little bit, then slide it into our actuator. We're just going to push straight down. Leave a little tug and make sure it's not going anywhere. Now we're good to make our connections to our plug-in in the front. Now I'm going to grab our air fitting for our vehicle. Looks like this. I'm going to find a good spot to mount it. Right here is going to be a good option, and then we can hide our airline tube right behind our license plate. We're going to grab a drill bit, drill out these holes, and then add a nut and bolt. Now we're going to drill out the hole for our airline tube. We're going to want to wallow it out just a little bit to get our fitting to fit through there. We just want to push our fitting in, kind of work it in with our hardware, just like that. Now we can add the rest of our hardware and tighten it down. Now we just want to take our excess tube and run it down from our operating unit down to that plug on the front. Our airline tube drops down right here, right up over this way, then it comes through our bracket right here and plugs into our fitting. Now ready to cut our airline tube. Try to get it lined up and cut it right about here. And deburr the edges. Then we're going to push that in to our air in. Just like so. I'm going to zip tie right here just to hold these two together. Went ahead and got our vacuum line ran. What we want to do is cut out our factory brake booster line. You want to follow your brake booster and follow the line that goes straight to your engine. We're going to cut that out, add a check valve with the black side facing towards the engine after the T. And we're going to run this back to our factory line. We're going to follow this all the way to our operating unit. And we're going to add another check valve with the black side facing our operating unit. We're now ready to connect our reed switch. We're going to be putting our brown wire to our brown wire. And if we grab our Coachlink, we'll follow that back up here. Our red wire is going to go to our blue wire on our reed switch, and we're going to do black to black. You can grab one of our butt connectors provided and just add that to each end of our reed switch. Now you can grab our brown wire, strip back a little bit on one end, or on this end. Then we'll be connecting that again to the brown wire on our reed switch. We'll grab our blue wire and our red wire. We'll add the red wire to our butt connector. Then black to black. Well, I think we need a carry. Now I want to slide our reed switch into our brake actuator arm. There's going to be a little screw here. We want to make sure that's facing out and at the bottom. So we'll take it like this and just slide it in to the actuator channel. With our reed switch slid in, we now want to grab a micro flat blade screwdriver and just tighten down that set screw. And we'll give our reed switch a little pull, and it's locked in. Now we can clean up our wiring. We now want to mount our Coachlink as high as possible underneath our dashboard. Like I said, we're going to come back and clean up that wiring. Now I have all of our wiring cleaned up for our braking system. The only wire you see here is going to be for our battery disconnect. But now we can move up to our engine compartment and make our connection. We're going to be using the side with the fuse holder. We'll take our wire, we'll just cut it right about here. Then we'll strip back that end. Now I just want to cut our fuse holder right in the middle. One side is going to get a ring terminal and the other side is going to be getting a butt connector. So we'll strip back both sides. Add our butt connector to one side. And our ring terminal to the other side. Now we're going to crimp this onto that power wire from our braking system. I'm going to come back and add some electrical tape just to help ensure a good connection. We're going to use a 13mm socket and take off our nut on our solenoid. And be careful not to drop this washer. Now we can grab our fuse holder, slide it onto our post, add our lock washer, then reinstall that 13mm nut. Now ready to add our fuse to our fuse holder. We'll grab the 10-amp fuse provided, peeled back our fuse holder cover, slide our fuse in, just like that, and add the cover back. I'm just going to run a zip tie around here just to secure it. That way it's not just flopping around on here. To start our installation of the Air Force One on our motorhome, we want to bleed off our brakes. All we're going to do is get in and push the brake pedal with the keys out of the ignition. We're going to keep pushing that brake pedal until there's no more air pressure in the lines. Then we want to climb under our rear axle and find our brake components. We're going to be looking for our supply air line and our metered air line. Our supplied air line is going to be usually the biggest line, and it comes right out of the master cylinder of the brake component. And in this case, it's this line right here. What we're going to do is we're going to grab our airline cutters, make a clean cut in the middle, add our T-fitting, and then our supplied airline tube. Now we need to find our metered airline. That's going to be coming out of our brake master cylinder right there, the same thing that the supplied airline is attached to, and it's going to loop around and come back down here. We're going to add our smaller T-fitting to that and run our airline tube back to our tank. When we run our airline tubes, we want to run them up and over our subframe and our suspension components and along the frame rail. We want to find a good place to mount our air tank, preferably on the side that the exhaust is not. So we found a good spot here. There's already some holes in our frame rail, so we just nut and bolted our tank through our frame rail right here. This is really sturdy, it's not going to go anywhere. And we ran our airline tubes from the T-fittings in the frame rail along all of this factory hose and wiring. Then I pulled it up over the frame rail back here, and it came down right here. On our air tank, there's going to be one side that only has one fitting. This is going to be our supply line. And if you follow the tank back here, there's going to be two different fittings. The furthest one to the back is going to be our fitting that goes out towards the back of our RV. And this fitting right here is going to be for our metered air. Now you can mount this tank in any orientation. The line that's going to go out to our truck comes right up here. And I put it through our mounts here and zip tied it. Then I pulled it straight down and out of the back of the RV. Our airline tube came out right here. And I'll use this supplied hardware to mount our air fitting to our bumper. With everything hooked up on our RV and our truck, we can now hook everything up and test it out. Installing our Coachlink is super simple. All you need is a 12-volt outlet. You set that on a nice flat surface, plug it in, and whenever our motorhome's turned on, this will tell us whenever we're stopping. There is a LED indicator light right here. Whenever that's green, we know it's paired. And as you can see, it's paired, so we know we're good and we're ready to hit the road. When we went to reinstall our bumper, we're actually going to have to trim out a little bit more. I'm just going to take this line out to about here, then kind of follow that factory line down to this corner. We're going to want to do this on both sides. With our flat toe components installed, we can now reinstall our fascia in the reverse order we took it apart. That's going to conclude our look at and installation of the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system with Coachlink.